Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're going to get started here in just a minute. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, December 6th, and I have a few questions for you as we come upon the close of 2023, another year in the books. How will you be remembered? Will you be remembered when you're gone? If so, for how long? How do you want people to remember you? Who do you want to remember you? When it comes to legacy, these are critical questions to ask to determine what will be our desired outcome. What is our end game? As we look forward to a new year, as we come upon the close of this current year, 2023, these questions are on the mind of a lot of people when it comes to the new year, right? How was 2023 for them? How are they going to remember it? What do they want to look forward to in 2024? We can apply these same questions to life when it comes to legacy. What do you want people to know about your years? How do you want them to be remembered? How do you want them to be impacted on other people? And that's one of the things we're going to look in today, because in asking these questions, again, we get to think deeper. What is it at the end that we want to see achieved, right? What's the vision we want to see realized, whether we're here or not? And in this context of legacy, is often after we're gone. So what is the vision that we're casting today here in the in the present that we want people to see in the future, right? When they look back on everything. So in asking these types of questions, let's look at 3 areas to get clarity and to provide more depth into the type of legacy we want to leave behind when we think about what is our ultimate goal, what is our ultimate achievement, what is our desired outcome, what is our end game. Let's look at these 3 different areas to try to help answer those questions. So the first area is the area of instruction. Leaving clear instructions behind. And when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to legacy, when it comes to these kinds of issues, we're talking about leaving clear instructions behind for people to follow. And also, when it comes to just the hard what to do's, it's about who gets what and when. Okay. And when it comes to instruction, this is a key factor, distinguishing factor between common estate planning tools like a will and a trust. Okay. So we all kind of know what a will is. You write down your wishes, who gets what, and then it goes to court. A trust does the same thing, but there's a big difference. So both can determine who will get what, but the trust has greater longevity. The trust has greater control and longer control over who gets what, when. Okay. The trust has longevity. The will must go through probate court. So that means there must be a beginning period. There has to be an ending period when it goes to court. It has to be finalized and completed. Whereas the trust, once you set it up, it can be perpetual. Okay. Depending on how you set it up, it can continue to go on for generations. We've heard the term trust fund babies. That's not something to shun, okay, because you're essentially setting up the generations to not have to really struggle year in and year out, generation in, generation out. And with instruction, it doesn't mean that you're going to be spoiling them. You can give instruction as to when they're going to come upon the money, what they have to do to get it, who's going to get it, right? There are very clearly defined parameters if it's done right and it's done well, and it can hold up for a long time. And that can be a big part of legacy, okay? Not just leaving the things and leaving them to people, but providing that clear instruction as to this is what you do with it when. This is how you use it when you reach a certain age, when you reach a certain milestone. Going to college is a big one. Getting married, reach age 30, right? There are many different ways to kind of leave behind a fortune, if you will, or a piece of property. And a lot of times, depending on what it is, if it's for a child, they can get it once they reach the age of majority, just 18 commonly, right? But with the trust, you can extend that out longer because you don't want to be leaving millions of dollars with an 18-year-old. They don't know what to do, right? And with clear instruction, you can not only leave that for them, but guide them as to how to do it. right? And when they reach an age of maturity, not in physical years, but in life experience, that they'll be able to handle it. So, instruction, look at what kind of instructions you want to leave. When we talk about instructions, again, who gets what, but also when, and how you want them to use it. Okay. That goes into legacy because they'll say, hey, you know what? Mom and dad did this for me and they told me I couldn't have it. And I was upset about it when I was 18. But when I became 30, I realized why. Right. And so if you just go from 18 to 30, excuse me, that's 12 years. And, let's say you passed at when the child was 18 and now they're 30 and they realize this is what it is. That's 12 years you've been gone, but your instructions still carry. Your legacy is still there. It's cemented in that instruction. So again, that's one area where we can talk about legacy and how you can, the title of this video, be present in your absence. It's essentially, how can you outlive your own life? Right? How can you still be around? How can your presence still be felt even though you're gone? Because it's a big deal. We're all going to go sometime, not to be morbid again, but just to be honest. But that doesn't mean that your entire essence has to be evaporated. We're going to get into essence later. But just because you're physically gone doesn't mean that your spirit is not still felt. Doesn't mean your instruction is not still felt. Number two, doesn't mean that your impact is not still felt. Okay, so first was instruction. Second is impact. So what is your impact? It's the amount, it's the quality that you leave behind, right? It's that that kind of boom that you leave behind. They'll never forget it, how you made them feel. Whether it's leaving, like we talked about the trust fund, leaving the money to grandkids, whether it's, grandbaby never met you, but you left them money to go to college and to not have to starve and struggle when they became of age to do that. Whether it's properties, right? Maybe you didn't leave all the investment properties you planned on, you left the family home, you left a legacy there. Or you not only left the family home, but you also built a great business. You built a great investment property portfolio. And it doesn't just impact the family, right? But it also impacts your vendors if you're a business, your employees. It impacts the community because you built an entire business hub. You created your own economy in that community and they depend on it for so many good things. Consumers can buy there. Other business owners can set up shop there, right? That is an impact that is still felt even though you're gone. And we see it all the time. We just really don't think about it in this way. Let's think about even today in 2023, the richest company in the world, I believe, if not the United States, I believe the world, is Apple. They are a multi-trillion-dollar business, if I'm not mistaken. And when we think about Apple, one name comes to mind. It is Steve Jobs. And he passed over a decade ago. Now, his exact death date, I'm not sure. I want to say it's between 2010 and 2012. I'm not exactly sure. But either way, this is 2023. And we're still talking about his impact, right? What he did to that company, how he revitalized it, how he made it what it is. Okay. That's a big part of still being felt, your presence still being ever present, right? Your presence still being around and alive, even though you no longer are. And it's not just with business and family, also charity. Excuse me, charitable donations. So a big part of legacy is giving, right? There are foundations all over the country right now, certainly here in Detroit, that still carry the name of the person that set it up, right, or had the idea to form it. And they're no longer here anymore. They passed away, but that foundation is going on strong and they support many, many causes throughout the year. That's impact, right? And that's legacy. So when we talk about impact again, who is it impacting? How much? How much is it impacting them? How much is it giving? Who is it giving to that's outside of the family, right? How far is the reach being felt? That's something that we can think about. Like, what do we want that to look like? What kind of instructions do we want to leave behind? What kind of impact do we want to have? The third one, what kind of influence? What kind of influence? And influence is key. So we talked about essence earlier. Influence is essentially your essence. It's a true indicator of legacy. Influence, we're talking about the lessons you leave behind, the values that you impart upon family and whoever else you come across, your morals, your conviction, your life's work. Again, it's a true indicator of legacy. It defines your legacy. Who you influence, how you influence them, whether positively or negatively. Okay. And again, it can extend so far out into the future, way beyond family. An example of this, you just look at the bookshelf behind me. I get compliments on it all the time. I've read most of these books. It's not for show, simply. Okay. But if you look at the bookshelf behind me, you can see figures like legendary historical people like the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., like the late Senator John Lewis. They had influence, tremendous influence, not just on their family, not just on their local community, not even just nationally, but globally, and not even intangible influence. They had direct influence. We were talking about policy and legislation changing, right? Their life's work and how they used it to directly influence members of Congress, to directly influence presidents, right? To directly influence global leaders of what was a huge problem at the time, right? Segregation, racism, still around, but in their time, much more rampant and blatant and disgusting. How they use their life's work to influence changes that can benefit later generations because they didn't all live to see it. Obviously, Reverend King was assassinated before he could see a lot of the impact of his work, before he could really realize the influence that he has now. And it's been almost 60 years, and we still talk about him. His legacy is still growing. It's still being positively cemented every day. It doesn't mean he still doesn't have haters, right? But influence is so key because that is his essence. That's his legacy. That's his life's work defined him. And, at a tragically young age when he was assassinated, only 39, I believe, less than 40 years old. But in those 39 years, what did he do with it, right? The influence cannot be understated. And when we talk about our own legacies, what is it going to look like? What is that influence going to be? Now, again, we can leave the instructions behind and impact also to care for quality of life and family. When it comes to influence, though, influence is so key because it can extend beyond family and throughout the ages. Again, decades have passed since Martin Luther King was walking the earth. And it wasn't like ages ago, like centuries, right? We're only talking about 60 years. There are plenty of 60-year-olds still around, plenty of 70, 80, 90 that remember him alive and well. So it's not ancient history, right? But it's still history, and we're still talking about it. We're still really unpacking a lot of the civil rights movement and everything, especially when it comes to 2020 and now 2023 with the global uprising against racism, the George Floyd execution, right? All of these inequalities and disparities socially. We're still unpacking it. We're still looking at him too to lead us in a lot of ways. That's influence, right? That's his legacy. The same can be said with some of the others. John Lewis, with Justice Damon J. Keith right here, Crusader for Justice. Nelson Mandela, right? Nelson Mandela. Huge, huge legacy, huge influence. What they went through, what they sought to get through, what they sought to bring about, even if they weren't sure that they were going to see it. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for almost 30 years. Did he know, right? Even if he didn't, he was going to be committed no matter what. And that influence it would have still been cemented because he fought for something so much bigger than himself. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's always going to be about something bigger than us. And if we don't see that now, we're never going to see it in the future. So again, that is really what it's about, to be present in your absence, to really think hard about these questions. Let me repeat them from the beginning. How will you be remembered? Will you be remembered when you're gone? If so, for how long? How long do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to remember you? Who do you want to be remembered by? What do you want your life to stand for? That's another question, especially when we talk about influence. What is your life's work going to be? What is the end game? What's your desired outcome? Are you going to follow it through to your end, even if you never see it? That's another one. So when it comes to leaving your impact, your legacy, you can absolutely be felt still. A lot of us don't like to think about death because we think it's the final end and there's like no going back, right? There's no beyond it. And that may be true for life here on earth, right? As we know. But again, so many historical figures that we still look to, so many people in our own family that we still look to. How many of us still have aunts and uncles and fathers, mothers, grandmothers that we are no longer here with us on earth, right? But we still remember their lessons. We still remember how they made us feel. We still remember their essence, right? And that can't be understated either. It might not have been a global influence, but it's definitely still an influence for so many of us and for so many of these global figures as well. So everybody has a part to play in it. It's not about comparison. But again, these are just questions to think on, and to help flesh them out again, let's look at what instructions we want to leave behind, what impact we want to leave behind, what influence we want to leave behind, and how far we want to take it. Okay, so that is our video for today. We are also going to be doing a masterclass on a lot of this, talking about legacy. It's called Secure Your Legacy. It begins on Monday, this Monday, December 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are really serious about these questions, if you are really serious about what kind of legacy you want to leave and the life you want to live beyond your own life, I would encourage you to join, to sign up. The information will be in the video description. Okay, so again, that's Monday, December 11th, 2023 at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will otherwise be back here next Wednesday, like we're here every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So next Wednesday will be the 13th. We'll see you then. Bye.